Welcome into First Pitch for June 29th. It is Thursday. We got some day action for you, so wanted to get the show out early here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. I am Drew Martin, joined today by Jimmy Adams, Steve Merrill, and Adam Trigger of WagerTalk.com. We got big game breakdown, and we got best bets coming to you. If you could smash that like button and feel free to reply below, it will help us out. So let's head off to our leadoff hitter here, Jimmy Adams. Jimmy, what do you got for big game breakdown on the Thursday slate?
All right, everyone. Today's big game breakdown takes us to Fenway as the Red Sox finish up their series with Miami. As some of you know, and my clients definitely know, Brian Bayo is a pitcher that's been high on my bet on list for a while now, and he really hasn't disappointed. Just 2 runs allowed in his past 2 starts, and he hasn't given up more than 3 earned since his first start of the season. He's been very consistent, and it's usually more like 1 or 2. Very impressive. Bayo gets a lot of ground balls with his sinker, four-seam, changeup mix, and he doesn't have any analytics that scare me. Any of my clients that are long-term subscribers know I'm a very big analytics guy, especially when it comes to pitchers in baseball, and he's just not a very big regression candidate. Jesus Luzardo, look, he's a solid pitcher, but he's been blown up twice in his past 5 starts and 3 times in his past 7, giving up at least 5 earned in each of those poor outings. Furthermore, the Red Sox are a much better team offensively at home, and they have 68 more runs on the season than the Marlins as of Wednesday evening. What you're eventually going to see happen is the Marlins are going to get overtaken by the Phillies in the NL East. But we're not really too worried about that. That's for down the road. We're worried about making money right now. This is a game that Boston can and will win. I lean Red Sox for today's big game breakdown.
Good start here from the leadoff spot and Jimmy Adams. Next up here, Steve Merrill in our 2-hole. Steve, what do you got for big game breakdown?
The Oakland A's have been a fascinating team to discuss all season long. They're going down probably as the worst team in the history of baseball. They're on a pace to lose more than 119 games, which is the most losses ever in 162 games. And that was in 2003 by Johnny Detroit's Tigers. A's on a pace to lose about 121 right now. But what's been remarkable has been how bad they've been in daytime games. And I know they've been bad all around, but Ralph Michaels and I broke this chart down last Friday. We did a weekend video. And by the way, it's still available on my page right now at wagertalk.com. It's archived on Wager Talk TV as well. 4 different charts, including a day and night breakdown between all the teams in the league. Comes in very handy for not only these Thursday afternoon games, but also Saturday and Sundays. Also a game 2 angle, which you can use all season long. So check out that video. But the chart that jumped out to me when Ralph and I talked last week was the day-night split. And this is something that I very rarely use when handicapping baseball, but I'm going to start to look a little closer at, because when we broke this chart down, one thing jumped out at me, at least for this season, that good teams have done a lot better in the daytime games and bad teams have done a lot worse in the daytime games. It's a little counterintuitive because you feel like these daytime early games, these getaway games, are a bit random sometimes, but that's not been the case. For example, the Texas Rangers, they've been good. They've been great this season. They've been mediocre at night. They've been lights out in daytime games, and they've been probably the best overall team in baseball, at least from a run differential standpoint. We all know the Oakland A's have been the worst team in recent history. But coming into this afternoon on Thursday, they are now 4-30 in daytime games. We pointed this out last Friday. They were 4-29. They lose 7-3 last Saturday at Toronto. By the way, they won Friday night at Toronto, but they're now 4-30 in daytime games. Dead last in baseball, to say the least. But they're in the upper half. They're around about 15th overall in nighttime record. So it's been a huge extreme road dichotomy. So the A's have been absolutely god-awful in daytime games. And the Yankees have actually been one of the better teams. Coming into last weekend, the Yankees had the 3rd best daytime record in baseball, and they were only 20th in nighttime games. So we have a huge dichotomy here between the Yankees and A's this afternoon. I'm always looking for a reason to fade Oakland, but the under might still be the best play. I mentioned this on Tuesday on the baseball show here. I used it as my free play that night on Tuesday. The Yankees are just terrible offensively right now. You know, Oakland's going to go down as one of the worst teams in baseball because their pitching is pretty bad, but their offense is atrocious. They have the worst batting average in baseball this year. But in the month of June, the Yankees actually have the worst batting average in all of baseball. In fact, if you look at all categories such as on-base percentage, runs, batting average, the Yankees rank dead last of all 30 teams in the month of June. They've been worse than even the Athletics. So under's always worth a look between these two teams. The first 5 inning The game was 7 last night. The first 5 inning line was 4. Top of the 5th, it's 1-0. I mean, they got off to an extremely slow start again last night. By the way, that free play I gave you on Tuesday was a 2-1 under 8 here on the show. So I'm not going to talk you off the under between Oakland and New York, but the home road dichotomy, the day-night dichotomy might actually favor the Yankees here. The A's are now 4-30 this season in daytime games. Just truly remarkable how awful they've been.
Thanks for that, Merrill. Next up here, we got Adam Trigger at Top Flight SI on Twitter. Trig, what do you got for big game breakdown?
All right, for my big game breakdown, I'm going to look at a game that I have some opinions on. This worked well yesterday with Reds Orioles. I know my big game breakdown on the hustle helped some people cash the over in that game. So I'm going to try something similar here with Phillies and Cubs because it's, even though I don't really have a bet here per se, it's a game I have quite a few opinions on, which hopefully leads you to a bet, which hopefully wins. So Phillies Cubs, I mean, I got to admit, I didn't have this one. Phillies 17-5 in their last 22 games have suddenly become one of the hottest teams in Major League Baseball. And prior to that, we're, one of the, I would say, the lesser teams in the National League. So it's been interesting to see the turnaround that they've had over the past, I would guess you would call it June, the past month or so. A big reason for their turnaround has been the pitching. They've had one of the top rotations, top to bottom, all encompassing, starters to bullpen over the last month or so. And a big reason for that has been tonight's starter, Taijuan Walker, who's 4-0 with an 0.79 ERA in his last 4 starts. He was great last time out against the Mets, 1 run over 6 innings. And he hasn't done anything over the past, month to suggest that he's not going to be good here. Earlier this year, he pitched against the Cubs, 5.1 scoreless innings in that game. And if you go back to 2018 in 3 starts against the Cubs, Taijuan Walker is a 1.7 ERA, and he hasn't lost to them. So he's pitched well against this team. He's rolling right now. So hard to believe that he doesn't at least turn in a quality effort here. The same can be said for his counterpart right now, which is Kyle Hendricks. So Hendricks, veteran guy, got a late start to his season. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass for the first couple outings. But the last 3 starts, he's been awesome. A guy that just continues to year in and year out show that you can still get by in this league, just knowing how to pitch. Hendricks is, he's going to throw in the mid to high 80s, but he just knows how to get guys out. Last 3 starts, 3-0 with a 1.4 ERA. He's just been fantastic. So his numbers against the Phillies haven't been great, but again, I think I more or less take his recent form over the fact that he hasn't had the best results like over the last few years against the Phillies. And overall, I think these guys both pitch respectable games. At the back end of this game, you're going to have 2 bullpens that, in my opinion, are trending upward. Both are roughly middle of the pack when you look at the surface numbers. But you look at some of the underlying metrics. WAR is one I like to particularly look at. Both start to creep up toward top 10. And, Hayden Wensensky, I probably just, butchered his name. But anyway, last night, 4.1 innings of relief. He really saved the Cubs bullpen. So here you're going to have the Cubs with all of their good relievers available. The Phillies, who have basically been able to trot whoever out there and get a great outing from them over the last 3 weeks. In a game that I think could be tight, last night, 8-5. I think you've got a bit inflated here on the total based on, sort of how these teams are coming into this game. I saw 10s for this. Even if it's 9.5, I think that's probably too many. This is probably a game that plays out as a little bit tighter, lower scoring game. And I got to say, I lean toward the Cubs here at plus money. The Phillies have won 4 or 5 so far this year, but the Cubs, kind of need this game. It would avoid a sweep at home. And I really think that I think they have just as good of a chance to win here as the Phillies do. So I would lean toward the Cubs getting, a nice plus price. And I also think this total is a little bit high. So big game breakdown, Phillies, Cubs. I lean toward the Cubs. And then this one probably stays under is how I would look at this game.
Big game breakdown in the books. Going back to the top of the order here for best bets, final thoughts for the show. So throwing it over here to Jimmy Adams. Guys, check him out, wagertalk.com. Jimmy, what do you got for best bets?
All right, so we're going to get to the best bet in just a second. But real quick, I just want to throw out let you guys know how I've been doing. So I'm up 43.41 units year to date in baseball on 3% plays alone. So grab a single game, a 7-day, a 30-day. You guys know the drill. But I also want to point out I was up 55.6 units in the NFL last season. We have our early bird special up right now at Wager Talk. You can get the entire season through the Super Bowl for as cheap as you're ever going to get it. So we are headed to Busch Stadium for today's best bet. And look, Houston is going through a tough scheduling spot right now. I mean, they just got done playing a series against the Dodgers in LA. Now they're at Busch Stadium, a tough place to play, despite the Cardinals' record, never an easy place to play. And then they head to Texas after this series to take on a team that might be the best team in baseball. All of that being said, Adam Wainwright has been due for regression for a long time now. He's a guy that I love to bet against. And we saw some of it come to light in his latest start. 7 earned runs on 11 hits in just 3 innings, including 2 home runs last time out. The Cardinals have lost 4 of Wainwright's last 5 trips to the mound, which shouldn't surprise anyone because his analytics are terrible. A barrel rate of 11%, a WOBA of 410, whiff percentage in the first percentile, a K percentage in the first percentile, and his velocity is as low as anyone in the league. This Houston lineup from top to bottom is going to be able to smack around Wainwright, and they'll probably be able to get a run or 2 off the bullpen as well. We're going to focus not so much on the Houston pitching, but rather on fading Wainwright. Astros team total over for today's best bet.
Next up here, Steve Merrill, 2 R's, 1 L. Steve, what do you got for best bets on the Thursday slate?
Let's look at a free baseball play for Thursday afternoon, a late afternoon game on the daytime card for Thursday. Getaway day, a lot of daytime games, but also some nighttime plays as well. And don't forget about my best bets. They have been red hot, to say the least. In fact, on a 9-1, 90% MLB best bet run the past week and a half. I believe in quality over quantity. I average 1 to 2 plays a day, and that's produced a 9-1, 90% best bet run the past week and a half at wagertalk.com. And don't forget about those free plays on a daily basis as well. Just another reason to check out my page, Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com. And that video that Ralph Michaels and I did going into last weekend is still available on my page, and it's got a good shelf life. 4 different charts, a game 2 angle you can use all season, day-night splits for every team in the league. Check that out right now on my page also, Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com. Get there quicker with shortcut code WT.buzz/SM. All right, let's look at a free play on the late afternoon card for Thursday. It goes at 4 o'clock Eastern in the American League. We're going to take under the total between the White Sox and the Angels, under 9 runs. 9 is a very key number. Briefly saw 9.5 overnight, but that didn't last long, and that's because the sharp money hit the under here. And I agree with that move. At 9 or more, there's still plenty of value between 2 teams that have really been ice cold offensively. You know, the Angels had struggled for a few games. In fact, they got shut out back-to-back 2-0 losses to the Dodgers last week. And then they got healthy offensively, as often teams do when they go to Coors Field in that thin air and altitude. And they managed to put up 29 runs on 39 hits last Friday and Saturday. But then they only had 3 runs on Sunday, and they really cooled off in the first 2 games in Chicago with just 2 runs and 4 runs. But what I'd like to look at is hits, and they did not have many. They only had 5 hits and 6 hits in those first 2 games. And then the Angels gave up a lot of runs last night on Wednesday, offensive sluggish at times. So I really think Anaheim's slumping still. And although the White Sox got some runs last night on Wednesday, this is a team that's still not in good current form offensively. Before that outburst last night, they had scored 2 runs or less in 3 of their prior 5 games, and they'd had single-digit hits in 9 of their prior 10 games. So I look for both teams to struggle in this afternoon game. I think under 9 between the White Sox and Angels has some value on Thursday afternoon. And don't forget, my strongest best bets are available for my clients every day at wagertalk.com on a near 9-1, 90% best bet run the past week and a half. Check out my top plays right now, Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com.
Next up here, Adam Trigger. We got best bets for the Thursday slate. Trig, what do you got circled here for best bet?
My best bet for the show, and guys, this is a 4% client play for me, is the Kansas City Royals plus 1.5. You're going to find this anywhere between minus 115 to minus 120. Believe I gave it out for to clients at minus 118. anything minus 120 or better is good here. Even if you have to go up to minus 125, that's fine. Get ready to pay a premium for your now first place Cleveland Guardians. They're back in first, yet they're still not a 500 team. And, I think we kind of saw the Twins overvalued as the first place team in this division. I think we're going to start to see that with the Guardians as well going forward. Cleveland's won 7 of 9. They've scored 53 runs in this span, but I want to kind of break down where their runs have come from on this streak. So if you go back to the beginning of the win streak, it was, a 14, I think, it was 12 runs against the Diamondbacks in a game where they avoided a sweep. Last night, they scored 14 in a game that got completely out of hand against the Royals. And then 13 of them came in 2 games against the A's. So I think it's a little bit deceiving, their offensive success over the past, let's call it a week and a half or 2 weeks. And here, I just don't think they have it, the out after the 14 run outburst last night. I think their offense sort of cools down. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Bo Naylor get a day off here. He's red hot, recently called up catcher, but he caught last night, and this is a spot where he's, would potentially get a day off. And then Guardians are going to throw Shane Bieber, and I've kind of talked about this all season. He's a guy that I've been willing to fade. All of his peripherals are down from last year. If you look at, just the high level numbers, the ERA is up from 2.88 to 3.69. But the big one for Bieber, the strikeout rate, last year, 25%, this year, 18.5%. That's a huge dip. And I don't think it's a coincidence that his numbers haven't been quite as good. You're going to hear a lot. I think if you follow social media, you'll probably hear Bieber against the Royals. He's never lost. And that's true. He's never lost a decision to them, 6-0 in 13 career starts against Kansas City with a 3.03 ERA. But I think there's a little bit of randomness there. And I think that's probably got him overvalued coming into the start, especially because Bieber, I don't think it's the same guy that probably started the majority of those 13 games. On the other side here, you have Zach Greinke, who amazingly, he hasn't lost to the Royals in over a decade. You'd have to go back to 2010 to find the last time Greinke, lost to the Guardians, regardless of what team he's been on. You'd have to go back over a decade since he's lost to the Guardians. He's only made 8 starts since then, but 4 of them were last year as part of the Royals, and the Royals won all 4 of those games. Greinke, a 1.19 ERA in those 4 games. Greinke, notoriously better numbers at home since he's been back with Kansas City. So he's someone I'd be willing to back here. Again, I go back to Bieber. His last 2 starts, 9 earned runs in 12.1 innings pitched and 4 homers. It just kind of goes back to my overall argument here that Bieber is in a bit of a decline, and all the numbers support it. So here, coming off a 14-1 loss, we've got all the fresh bullpen arms for the Royals. You're giving me plus 1.5 with them at home in a game I think is going to be pretty competitive. I think the Royals probably win here, but the 1.5 at this price, in my opinion, is the value. So I'm going to take the Kansas City Royals plus 1.5. You're looking at juice from anywhere between minus 115 and minus 125, depending on your book. And any of that is going to be good enough for a 4% client best bet on the Royals.
All right, guys, that does it for best bets from the crew. I'm going to add on one here. We've been good so far this week in best bets. Going to try to keep the streak going here. And I'm heading to a day game. Do note it's 2:10 Eastern, so 11:10 Pacific start here. Can't wait around to get down. And I'm going with the Cleveland Guardians, Kansas City Royals on the under. Do keep in mind we are recording this early, so on the overnight market, it is a total of 9. I'm listing the pitchers. We got Shane Bieber, no relation there to Justin Bieber. Biebs is on the hill versus Zach Greinke, the ageless one. These guys are just coming off of a 2-1 start to this series. Both teams trending under. And really, that's what got me to just go after this game. I mean, when you add up these over-under statistics on the season, these two teams combined for 64 and 88 to the under. That's 24 units on the under if you've been betting both of these teams to the under. Speaks a lot towards their offense. And with Greinke and Bieber, 2 guys that change speeds a lot, I think they can hold the opposing offenses at bay. So we do get a total of 9 here. Bieber, 3.6 ERA, 77 strikeouts on the year. Do like him. And Zach Greinke, Hey, at times he's been blown up, but at times, how old is he now? He's got to be flirting with 40. He's still in the majors for a reason here. He's been able to live at the lower velocity mark for quite some time. Again, guys, total of 9, Cleveland and Kansas City. I am on the under for Jimmy Adams, Steve Merrill, Adam Trigger. I'm Drew Martin. That does it for First Pitch. Please smash that like button. And we will be back for Friday's show, 2 o'clock Eastern, right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. So cash those tickets, guys. Thanks for tuning in.